Hi, 10th grade design. This is Miss Stapp here with your weekly overview of the lesson plans. As you can see, we're on podcast lesson number 10, and you probably know, it should say number 11. Oh. Good morning, 10th grade design. This is Miss Stapp here with your weekly overview of our assignment for Design 5. So at the top, you see we're on podcast lesson number 11. And the ATL for the week is keep an organized and logical system of information, files, and notebooks. That becomes especially important now during the creation process that you take diligent notes. In Design 5, documentation is extremely important. And moving forward in your career, if you use the design cycle, you will realize how critical documentation is, not just so that you can continue to create and look back on your project and make sure that you've done everything exactly as you have intended, but those notes that are reflections. So moving forward, you can make adjustments. And so other people in this case can create your podcast just as well as you do. So we will have that, weekly meeting. Can you see from 12 to 2? So I've allotted a little more time this week. And from 12 to 1, we're going to host one class. And then from 1 to 2 will be another. Please go to that class that you're assigned. There's been some Zoom bombing incidents in our school and across the country. And that just ensures that the right people are in the class. If you do need to come in like I did last time and ask more questions in the second class, I will open up an opportunity later after I've gone through the whole lesson plan, and then I'll open up that to questions. So if you come into the second class because you didn't get anything answered or everything answered in the first class, you'll probably be set in the waiting room for a little while until I've gone through everything like I did in the first class, and then you'll have that opportunity to ask me some more questions. So that is why if you try to get into a different class than the one you were assigned, why we're stuck in the waiting room for a little while, but I will open that up to you at the end. So let's see. We are creating the solution. We started last week potentially, but you did not have to. At least you started working on some of the skills that you would need to for successful creation of your podcast. This week, definitely, you should be working on the parts that will go into your podcast. So, all of these steps, step 1 through 3, are a part of following the plan to create the solution which functions as intended. And we'll be doing this this week as well as next week. Step 1 is pretty easy, I think. It's very short. Use photos and or video to document and show evidence of following the plan to create the solution in your digital process journal. So your video or your photos with captions and headings, so I understand what those photos are, should be all included in your digital process journal. And we have 3 hours of time allotted towards this. Remember, I do not expect you to finish your podcast this week. We're going to continue to work on it next week. Your photos and video must be recorded in your process journal, and it will be uploaded to ManageBack by Sunday. If you have any problems, and I know videos, it's hard to upload videos oftentimes to ManageBack, please find a platform to host your video or to place your video on and send me that link so that I can see your video. That'll work just as fine. And you could do that by uploading a document, say a Google document, Google Sheet, to ManageBack, and it just has your link on it. Step 2. Make notes that document and show evidence of following the plan to create a solution in your digital process journal. As I just stated, so this documentation part is critical to Design 5 and this part of the creation process. You should be taking notes as you go along. And the idea is that maybe you're brainstorming for features, things that you can add in your annotation, which will be next week, or reflections on what you should do next time. All that has to be documented somewhere. And I've created kind of an easy way, I think, for you to do this. And I'll show you that in just a minute. There's just a little reminder here that we are not going to finish it this week. You're going to continue to work on it next week. Now, You wonder why you only have 30 minutes for notes? Is because I'm just kind of thinking of the minutes it takes for you to write down. So what you're doing as you're creating is you're finding out things that maybe you need to add to or change as you go along. So you have your procedural list and your plan, and you're following that task list, hopefully, in your procedural list, step by step. But this is the first time you've ever done a podcast, so you might find things as you go along that you need to make notes about. So hopefully just a writing of those notes won't take too long. Actually, the creation part, that's going to be in your 3 hours. What kind of notes do you need to write down? I'm so happy that you have asked. Your notes should include new brainstorming, like I just suggested, ideas about changes you should be making, links for additional technical skills, like how to use new software or any soft skills you might have to learn or find you need to learn, like storyboarding or story structuring or audience building. So all of those go into your notes. I provided an exemplar below, and I will show you that right now. So these are my planning notes over on the left-hand side, and you can do this pretty easily. You can just kind of snip a picture. You can take your original procedural list and put it on one side. You can even add to your Gantt chart if you want. That is perfect for me, just add a column. But you should make clear that these are your notes, your creation notes for me. Okay. You can see that this column is pretty nice because it associates or has kind of close the notes with the task that I'm doing. The other way that I designated this is I put number 1. So number 1 should be associated with procedural list task number 1. My first note is script production took longer than I planned, and I had to adjust my dependent steps accordingly to this. So remember your time management plan. That's just a note that some things, there will be adjustments based on my time allocation, just to me. The next thing is for step number 2, which is plans for my subsequent episodes, I borrowed a generic planner obtained for this, and I'm going to use that as my generic planner for my podcasts. And I have a link to it, so it should just allow me to quickly go there and grab what I need. As I went along, maybe I wasn't specific enough. Remember when I asked you to be really specific about your procedural steps and you said, but I don't know yet. Well, during the creation process, if you find out that these steps weren't specific enough for you to just flow from one end to the other and know everything that you needed to, this is the opportunity for you to put that information in. Okay. So I included what kind of mic I'm using as a mic I already had and what kind of recording platform and editing I'm going to use. Okay. Further down, I found as I was working through this procedural task that I needed a little bit, some more skills. So I was having trouble with the editing, and I went on YouTube and I found this link for Audacity that runs me through a tutorial, an editing tutorial, and I'm putting this here so that I know in the future if I hand this off to somebody else, I will include this in my annotations. Here's the link to what you're going to need to know in order to do editing. And let's see, number 6 goes with 6. Recorded 5 minutes of royalty-free music. So over on the left, I had exactly where I was going to find the music, and now this is how much. I didn't have it in my materials, and I didn't have it in my procedural step. So now this is the place to put it in my notes, that I need to add this 5 seconds of royalty-free music. I also learned that credit, as I was reading and using this platform, credit has to be given during the outro. So I need to add that. So that was another note I added here. I hope that makes sense. It's just kind of an easy way for you to place your notes. Do not feel, and for me, I did it kind of the hard way. So I put my notes, I typed them up. These are notes for you. I just have to see that you're doing them. So what you could do is print off your tasks and a column or a sheet of paper for yourself, and you could just handwrite these notes. But I do need to see that you are developing during this process of your first time making the podcast, and you're taking notes that you can reflect on later to make this podcast just perfect, and in order to potentially have somebody else recreate your podcast. All right, let's move along. You can see that your notes, they have to be recorded somehow in your process journal. That can be just taking a video. These are the notes I took. It can be you doing the notes. It can be a picture of your notes, and you can upload that to ManageBack in your process journal. Again, every week from now on, you will be uploading your process journal, the revisions for me. So our next step will also include some process journal. Does that mean you have to upload your process journal to me twice? No, just once, but it has to include evidence of all the steps. It has to include your notes and the thing we are about to discuss, which is your updated time management plan. So step 3, as I just let you know, is update your time management plan to record the actual time spent on your procedural list tasks. So will you be completely done with your time management plan at this point? No, but you'll have at least those 3 hours and 45 minutes of work that you've done this week on your podcast recorded on your time management plan. As you know, you've gone through and you've done the tasks, and here is the time allotted to the task and finished, finished, finished. However, whatever kind of time management plan you set up to show me. All right, I'm going to get to the bottom. I've only done one video this week because these steps are pretty, they're contingent on each other and they're pretty quick. So I think you can manage it in this one video. So step 1, add videos or photos to your digital process journal that documents you following the plan that you created and the procedural list that you created in order to create your podcast. So just evidence of product creation. 2, I need to see evidence that you are taking notes, that you're thinking through your procedural list, that you're brainstorming about how to do this better, and you're adding any new skills that you need to learn somehow in your notes. Step 3, update your time management plan to reflect the time that you've spent and the tasks that you've completed. All right. Thanks, guys. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow in our Zoom meeting.